Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I am Almedia Exum, and we have the Anarkist here. We are reviewing Lovecraft Country, Episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. Welcome. You want to say anything, the Anarchist?
Peace, y'all. You know who it is. It's the Anarkist. And like my colleague Almedia just said, we're about to go ahead and break down the sixth episode of the TV series Lovecraft Country. And again, his name Meet Me in Daegu. So you ready, Almedia? You want to just get
I
started with a little bit of backstory on what we talking about?
Yes. So when we last left off on Lovecraft Country, we saw that Atticus, he made a phone call to someone from South Korea. And this episode explores that world, who is the woman he's been calling all of this time when he like makes these serious calls to South Korea. So this episode Mimi and Daegu, uh, we uh, we figure out what's really going on. We see Atticus and his experience in the Vietnam War in South Korea. So in the very beginning, the episode kind of feels like it's an entirely different show because you don't see Atticus until later on in the episode. So it feels like we're watching like a totally different show. We see the actress, the character who's played, I don't even know how to say her real name, but the character's name is Gia,
Hmm.
and we see that she's a nurse or she's studying to be a nurse. And one of the opening scenes is her really enjoying this American film. And I forget the name of the film. Do you remember the name of the film?
Yeah, the name of the film that she was watching was Meet Me in St. Louis,
Mm.
which is starring the actress Judy Garland, which we all know her from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, uh-huh. And so she's so fascinated about this film, and she's imagining herself dancing, or maybe she is really dancing. I just want to say a side note, when Gia is dancing, she just reminds me so much of like, I mean, I know it's like a musical, the movie or whatever, I guess, I think, but she just reminds me of like a musical like artist, like a someone who would be in musicals a lot. Like I just thought her acting was really good throughout, but the opening scene where she's like dancing or at least dreaming of dancing to this American film, I thought it was very musical theme. Like like as if she could be in like any musical, like American musical, and I thought that was very interesting. I also thought this opening scene was interesting because we see this woman in her own country so fascinated with American culture, with white American culture, and it just made me realize that, which I already knew, but it just shows us as an audience just how much influence America has on the rest of the world. Like you could be Korean fantasizing about, this, just so caught up in this fantasy of like this American movie and what they're doing in the movie and American life, so to speak. And so I thought that was very interesting. Where's your take on that?
Yeah, that's very true, and I like the way how they deal with it because, of course, if you look at the credits, this particular episode is co-written not only with Misha Green but also with Kevin Lau, who is a writer. I think he's maybe a full-time writer at HBO, but I know he is also a
Mm.
composer. He does music and I think he does films as well. Maybe he's assistant director on films. But that's why I thought, I enjoyed this particular episode of Lovecraft Country based on, and it might have a lot to do with Kevin Lau's writing. Now, when it comes to the American influence, of course, you would have to go into history and just understand why South Korea is so influenced by America, and basically, it has a lot to do with World War II, which of course was the war that Atticus was fighting. World War II. We might have said the Vietnam War on first episode, but I was like, I don't think that's right because I know Vietnam was the 1960s. In the
Mm.
late 40s, it was World War II we were fighting. So of course America against the communists or the Russians or whatever. So that kind of leaked afterwards. And in 1950, um, Japan had took was actually Japan was had basically owned the territory of Korea, but
Mm.
uh, but I guess Japan had to kind of pull back on that. So North Korea and South Korea have always been split because North Korea fought in the war with the Russians. They were mostly communists, and South Korea fought in the war with the Americans. So that's where the
Mm.
American influence so much in South Korea comes from. But even, of course, there's some contention there too, because even in this episode where we find Gi when she's going on what they call a meeting, and this is where women meet up with South Korean women meet up with South Korean men trying to find a match. So, she's trying to find a match because in the beginning of the episode, who we believe is her mom, says you need to find men. She didn't actually say you need to find a man. She said you need to find men.
Yeah,
So,
which is interesting.
yeah, so when she tries to, because of course she's so in love with these films, these Judy Garland films. She's a big fan of Judy Garland, and she likes that particular film. I guess maybe that's one of the only films they were screening at this. I don't know, but she likes that film, Meet Me in St. Louis, which is a film I haven't seen it, but I researched it after I looked at this. It's supposed to be a film about a woman. I think it's a Christmas film mostly, even though I'm not sure how many Christmas themes it has, but it's a musical, and it's supposed to be about a coming of age story about a woman, figure out who she is. So, I guess that's some of the things that they tie into this, because of course, GI has to figure out, or we have to figure out who she is at least, and she kind of figuring
Who
it out as
and
well.
what she is.
Exactly. So yeah, to understand the American influence, you do have to go back into history and after World War II. We had the Korean War, which is obviously why Atticus is there. So, but there was obviously South Korea being a capitalist country based on the American influence and them fighting with Americas, and of course North Korea, South Korea being split, North Korea invading South Korea, and this is where the Americans come in and try to fight this war against communism. Greetings to Christine. Greetings to Christine in the room. How you doing,
Hi,
Christine?
Christine.
Peace. So yeah, so Almedia.
Yeah, welcome, Christine. Greetings. Yeah, so we start out with this, and thank you for that breakdown. This is episode 6, and we are breaking down, reviewing, and decoding episode 6 of Lovecraft Country. Meet me in Daegu. And yeah, so we see this. We see this with Gia. I think it is interesting that she's watching this film about an American girl figuring out who she is as this Korean woman figures out who and what she is, and just how she fits into the world around her. I think it's interesting that this whole episode we're seeing her try to figure out who she is in the middle of war, and I think there's a lot of race relating happening. Like, okay, like Koreans are dealing with this during the war, and there's been an ongoing war against blacks in America. We have to constantly figure out our identity when we're faced with war happening around us. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that seems to be like something that consistently is kind of like said without being said throughout the whole episode. And so you see that she's trying to figure out who she is. Her mother tells her she needs to get men. So she starts to go to this dating. I think it's kind of cute. I felt so bad for her though. Like the speed dating or whatever to find like nerdy. I think they had to be doctors, right? I think
They were engineers.
Engineers, which they make good money. So I understand why her mother was telling her to like go and get these men or whatever. And so we just see her basically trying to have a conversation with these men, right? And the men just aren't interested. And the only thing she really knows to talk about is American films. And so it's this idea that, hey, like no one relates to me because I'm obsessed with American culture. I'm obsessed with American films. And, but she's really trying. It kind of gave me that like Mulan feeling. Because I remember, in the Disney Mulan film, she was trying to get matched with a man. And she was trying to just go through the regular, like, getting groomed for a man or whatever. And she just didn't really make the cut. And so when I see this woman, Gia, just talking about herself, really trying to like say whatever she thinks a man is going to hear. And then, after basically realizing no one's interested in her, in what she's interested in and like movies and stuff like that, it's just kind of sad. I remember there was a guy at the end. The Anarkist, are you there? It looks like the camera's freezing.
Oh, can you see me?
I can see you. It's just freezing for a second. I don't know why. Let's see. Can you see me? Can you see me? Hello?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
This is so weird. So okay. As long as you can see me, I'll keep talking. On my end, it's just kind of frozen for some reason. But
Okay.
I'll just keep going. As long as you can see me, I'll keep going. So there was a guy that could that was interested in the story she was telling. She was telling the story about the film or whatever, and
Hold
he was
on,
like,
Almedia, if
"Yeah,
you can't see me, let me try to leave and come back really quick, okay?
okay,
Come back,
all
leave
right,
and come back into the room.
okay." Just bear with us for a moment. Let's see. All right, we are back in business. Okay. Yep, everything looks good. Everything looks good. Okay, so where do we leave off? We were talking about GI and how I thought it was so cool that the last person that she talked to, it seems like they were going to have a good connection because he was able to relate to that film. And I was like, yes, just choose her. I mean, she's out here being vulnerable. Choose this woman. And he's like, when it was time to like decide who he was interested in, he didn't circle her name. Christine said, you are both good on audio and sound on our side. Thank you so
Oh, yeah,
much,
on this
Christine.
side, yeah.
Thank you. And so I thought that was kind of sad that like he looked at the sheet and like didn't circle her name or something. And he was like, good luck though. Like, it's nothing personal, but like good luck. And I was like, darn it, like what's wrong with her? She's fine, and just seeing her get so lost in that TV screen in the first scene, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. Like when young women and young men, and heck, older women and men too, are just trying to figure out who they are. And sometimes the only people they can relate to are characters on a screen or in a book. And that's something that Atticus shares too. He gets lost in stories, because sometimes the closest thing you can get to being like relatability is characters on a screen. So we see that happen, and some other nurse gives her advice or something. Do you remember that? Like a nurse gives her advice about dating and hanging out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when she invites her out. And she's like basically saying she doesn't want to be the third wheel. She didn't say that, but she's like, oh, I can't just hang out with you all or something like that, I think, right? And then she invites her to hang out anyway. And doesn't she meet somebody there or something? Is that how that happens?
Yeah, in that scene, I guess after the meeting, the little speed dating thing, where yeah, I thought that was interesting too, how she's just showing her personality, and she's talking about what she loves, which is the film Meet Me in St. Louis. So she says that to one South Korean engineer guy, and he's like, I remember one of them was just saying something like, the things the Americans done, and you want to do this, that. So that's his position. So
That was good. That was good because that was true, and we're American, and we can even agree. I'm glad you brought that up, the anarchist. I was like, wow, that's how it should be. Like you should love your country. It was interesting to see that she's kind of like an outsider because people should love their country more than they love any other country, And so I
yeah.
could see why that would be an insult to that man. What were you gonna say?
And I think that's what he was saying. He was just saying, "Oh, they try so hard to destroy our tradition." So I thought it was good as for writers to add that in there. Obviously, that was Kevin Lau, his influence, and a lot of which we'll get into. But after that, yeah, she meets a dude who shares her same love for American classic film, which at the time wasn't a classic, probably just came out, but American film. So he's just like, "Oh, I already know this and know that," and she's just like, "Okay, we're about to have a connection." He's just like, nope, sorry." So it was a little comedy in that because he was like, dang, what? He's just like, well, I guess we can share that, but I still ain't trying to be with you. So that was interesting. So, but after that scene, yeah, of course, there was some sort of, and obviously now we know there is the LGBT thing weaved into a lot of these episodes because I've seen GI kind of giving the look to, I don't know what her best friend's name was, but they kind
Yeah,
of was giving each other.
I was
Yeah.
wondering. I'm like, is it just me? I'm getting very much like they like each other vibes, and like,
Mm-hmm.
because she was encouraging her to be different. Now,
Right.
as we discover after GI takes the man home, that she is some type of like, she has like a spider, not a spider inside of her. She's something else. She's another. We discover that she has been.
She is a they
What
said
is
she
it?
was a, give me one second. She is a Kumiho. I'll break that down real quick.
Oh yeah, Kumiho,
She is a
nine-tailed fox spirit.
yeah,
Go
she
ahead,
is
you break it
a
down.
all right. She's called a Kumiho, which is spelled Kumiho. Kumiho. That's I looked that up. Kumiho in Korea literally means, like you said, nine-tailed fox. A fox with nine tails. So that the whole, and which we can called, would be called in America, fox spirit. So she's what's called a Kumiho, is a fox spirit. Now, what this is if you look into Chinese folklore, Korean folklore, and even Japanese folklore, they have all some variations of this story, which is the Kumiho, or the foxtail person, is usually it's a spirit. It's a fox spirit, which all with all these tails. So those were her tails.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mythology, in the folklore is basically, I guess, a tale for men, because what the fox spirit does is lures men by it lures men by transforming into a very attractive woman, and it lures men back and it kills men. But it's basically a folklore story to try to stop rapists. You know what I'm saying? Because so this, if you get caught with this very attractive woman, this could be a Kumiho, a nine-tailed fox, or a fox spirit that's going to kill you based on your transgressions against women, which is basically what this show is about. So
Mm-hmm.
Jiha is really a Kumiho. We find out that um, her mother was in a relationship, or actually her mother was very disrespected in the town or the village because she didn't have a man. She had a child out of wedlock. So she went and found a man who was actually a child molester. She said all through the show about how her husband, who Jihad never referred to as her dad, she would always refer to that as her mom's husband. And the mom would be
I
like,
thought
don't speak
later
about,
she said her father though. No, I thought
I
she
don't
said
think
later
so.
her dad. Okay, okay, okay.
So, because, all right, so basically, the mom was tired of her daughter being abused by her new husband. So she went to the shaman, who we see at the end of the episode. She went to the shaman and tried to figure out what to do about it. And the shaman said, well, I can do something to get rid of the husband, but it's going to be at a cost. So I guess she decided to do it. And what happened was she conjured up this nine-tailed fox, this Kumiho spirit, this fox spirit, to actually kill the husband. But the drawback was you have to you have to bring 100 souls in order for, I guess, the spell to be broken and for her to get her daughter back. So this woman is pretty much sitting here the whole time. This is not my daughter. This is this Kumiho spirit. So she doesn't treat her like her daughter. She doesn't love her like she's her daughter. And she tells her, you can't feel any emotions. You can't do this, do that. You just need to bring me back these men so you can kill them, snatch these souls so we can get 100 and I can get my daughter back. So it's
Mm.
interesting because they use this whole idea to try to explain the dynamic, mother-daughter dynamics, because her and her best friend, who of course there's kind of some lesbian lover connotations there when they get into conversations about how different they are, but it's a layered difference because they may be lesbians, who knows, but of course they're best friends. But also Jiha is a fox spirit. She's a monster, as we can say. And her best friend is a communist. She's actually feeding the communist information, which we find out. But yeah, so the mother is trying to really get this woman to lower these. We see her cleaning up, like, all right, one more, two more, to get these spirits back because I want my daughter back. And Jihad is like, do I really want to go through with this? Because I don't know how much of me is actually the daughter, and I don't know how much of me is the spirit, and I'm not sure if I want to find out. But so she's trying to do her best just to get the mother to love her. The mother's not trying to love her because she's like, look, you're not my daughter, you this spirit, and I'm gonna get you back. So that's where we at with it. She's obviously this. So this is all based off real mythology, real folklore in Korea, which obviously Kevin Lau, the brilliant writer, knew and wove in here, which I thought was interesting. So
Mm.
in that scene, she leaves with the friend and the guy that she picks up, her friend picks up. She's there and she lures a man back. We know as another man, but the first man in the film has sex with him, another very graphic sex scene. But I actually don't mind the sex in this episode because it weaves with the story kind of perfectly. You can't have this episode really without the sex because the fox spirit has to have sex with the men and kill them after the sex, obviously. And obviously, it's interesting how when her tails come out, she'll penetrate the guy. She goes into like his eyes and sucks his soul and basically retains his memory. She even explains to the mom in one conversation, when I killed your husband, I got all his memories. That's why I know all these things that your daughter would know. Because when she's like, there's things in you that remind me of my daughter, so I know she's in it. She was like, nope, your daughter not in here. I sing these songs because I remember this is what your daughter used to sing right before this man used to rape her. So it's not
Mm.
your daughter that you hear, and it's just me with his memories of her. So
Wow, you know what's interesting? And you got way more from this than I did for this episode because, not to interrupt you, like I felt like the daughter really was in there. But I remember she said she never remembered her mother singing that song. Like you said, she remembers her dad singing it. And she was like, why don't I remember that? And I thought that was just her way of saying, like, look, I am your daughter, but I don't remember this. I just remember him being nice to me or whatever. But maybe it is because, like you said, like more of her is the creature spirit than is the daughter. But this whole episode, I just kind of felt like she was more the daughter. She had these very human feelings, you know, and I didn't get monster from her until she started like having sex with these men and ripping them to shreds, which was terrifying and gross. It was mostly gross because I'm like, okay, this is no one wants to die that way, you know.
right. And
Um, Go ahead.
it like I said, this episode does touch on monsters a lot because obviously we're trying to understand and she's trying to understand who she is because the mom is telling her, look, you can't feel. They even have a conversation where the mom says, when after she falls in love with Atticus, which we'll talk about, and she says, I can feel that he loves me and I love him. She was like, the mom said, you can't feel, and if you can, you more of a monster than I thought you was. Because in the mom's eye, she's like, you're just this spirit, this monster that kills people, and you don't really understand what you're doing. But she's like, if you do understand, if you can love people, then that's pretty monstrous. And she kind of flips it on her, like, oh, maybe you're the monster. Are you trying to be a monster to be more human? But anyway, so that's kind of the motif as it is with most of these episodes, like the first very good episode where we're talking about either monsters, the actual monsters, or the monsters within white supremacy. This episode, we're talking about her being an actual monster and can she feel as a monster, and Atticus feeling like a monster based on the transgressions that he has to do in war
And
in the
then the
orders that he's given.
monster, and then the bigger monster of war, you know, which is, you know, happening in so many ways. It's happening metaphorically in each episode, but we're seeing, we saw war in the beginning intro scene of the first episode. We're seeing these different kinds of wars happening, but the monster of war has turned him into something he's not. And I don't think the monster of war created her, because if it wasn't for the pedophile guy assaulting her, her mother would not have made that choice. But her mother became somebody she wasn't. You know, her mother really is a monster too. She doesn't realize it. She may not be cursed like her daughter is cursed, but there's a lot of monsters in this episode. But I think war is the biggest monster, and it's consuming everybody around it. You know, and we see the monster of Atticus. You know, he's not a literal monster, but him just not knowing who he is, just being trying to be a good soldier in this what tumultuous time, this chaotic, you know, time. And it's a lot of things happen in war that we don't even know about. You know, we really don't, people don't speak on or anything. So
Peace,
yeah.
spirit. Peace,
Spirit
spirit
says
in the room. How you
hi, the
doing?
anarchist. That's what Spirit says. Thanks for tuning in, Spirit. All right. So yeah, so we see this happening. Thanks so much for breaking that down, the anarchist. And we just get this feeling that, you know, she doesn't want to do this anymore. And I don't know if you realize this, and maybe I misheard. Spirit says, hi, Elmira. It's Almedia, but hi, Spirit. Thank you so much. Actually, I have a cat named Elmira, but thanks so much for tuning in, Spirit. So when she was talking about the consuming the souls or whatever, her mother was telling her how many she had. Did you notice in the beginning she didn't tell her how many she had left because her mother didn't know? She didn't know. She just said like soon, soon. Oh, I found out all you have to do is do 100 souls or whatever. I don't think she knew at first it was 100. I think her mother was just like playing it by ear, like trying to see how many she needed to do, and just killing these men to a point
Well,
to where, huh?
I will say I do agree. I didn't notice that, but I will agree with you there that you say that maybe it was the fact that sorry, Almedia, the auto. I have to figure it was the autocorrect, but um I figured that she now that you say that I can see that maybe Jiya, the Korean woman, maybe didn't know how many men she needed to kill or too much about that, but the mother who went to the shaman knew that she needed 100 souls. So
Okay.
she was very dick. She was 12 more, two more, and then she got the one more because she knows she's trying to get her daughter back. So she's trying to basically banish that spirit. They need 100 souls.
I mean, but you gain your daughter back, but her vessel has been, you know, tainted with like 100 souls or more. You know what I mean? Like, how much of her would really come back. And I feel like Gi is somewhat of her daughter. I don't know. And in this crazy dysfunction that the mother had to experience, she's trying to make sense out of like dysfunction. So it's like you want to have like sympathy for her, but it's just like really, like just not put a curse on your daughter to like you just do it if it has to be done and something has to be done about this guy taking advantage of your daughter. Now I know women's rights, even we can even see I think like another theme throughout this whole season is like the idea of like maybe not feminism but like female rights no matter where you're at
Oh
around the
no,
world.
feminism. But we'll probably get more
Feminism.
into that when we talk about episode 7. But
Oh
I can
yeah.
I can see it a little bit in this episode because especially when they talk about when we know about the story, which I think is very good. I like that aspect, and then how because we start from Gi's perspective pretty much, living in her house,
Yeah.
pretty much following her, and then we meet Atticus from her perspective. So we have
Hmm.
to learn, even though we know a lot about Atticus's past, we have to learn about him through her perspective. But
And he looks
um,
like someone you don't want to be around. He looks like, someone that I understand why she wanted to, we find out, take his life because from her perspective, you don't see a lot of shows do this. Like it's nice that they did this in this show. You don't see a lot of shows dedicating one episode to a whole different perspective, especially when it's not even in that world. Like she's in a different world than what Atticus has experienced, and where the story, I guess, was going. Even though we know every episode is different, but to just take us out of the normal perspective of Atticus and everyone else, it's just like, who is this person? But I'm glad it's good that they did it. And so we see her perspective of Atticus, and like you said, it is it is one to where you're like, yeah, he really, I would have too. I would have at least wanted to. But women power, like even in Korea, we see that maybe her mother went to the woman because she knew that she didn't have a lot of power. And if a woman was caught attacking a man, she could probably easily get like killed or attacked with no type of like, you know, no type of nothing, no harm would have came to a man who had put any harm towards a woman in South Korea. So we see that women's rights aren't really probably protected over there. This whole idea of trying to find a mate, it's just like this very much, like male dominated like society over there, even in the war. And so you see that. And so I think throughout the whole season, we see this idea of feminism showing up and just basically letting us know that it's a lot that needs to be done, not just in America, but around the world as far as women's rights and like equality and stuff. And so we see that, and we start to get an idea of Gi and Gi's best friend's relationship and how they are. And like I said, it seems like they may be like sexually interested in each other. But honestly, I think they're sexually interested in each other. But I feel like her friend was more sexually interested, and maybe Gi, she was just trying to figure out this whole monster thing. She still was attracted to men, and maybe her friend was more so like, I may be interested in dating men, but I want to be with you, like type of thing. And we find out what happens to her friend. Um, and do you want to kind of just break that down?
what happens to her friend?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's the
so
next
our
thing I think basically that happens.
yeah, so yeah, after basically, yeah, there is some sort of undertone going on between Jihad and who she calls her best friend. And there's a scene where they're walking with each other, and she explains. And I'm gonna say this because I know from your perspective, you think she's more so human because you talk about how she's attracted to men, but I'm not sure how attracted she is to anything. In my perspective,
And
she
she
is.
feels like she was sad watching the movie. She can be happy and be sad and be into adventure stories. Like if she's an alien, why would they want anything or any type of dark spirit? Why would they care about basic stuff in this reality, in this realm? If like that's for the human experience to experience. I don't know. Like I don't even know if that makes sense. But basically, I feel like if she was just some spirit, then why would she be indulging in human like stuff, like interest, like a movie?
Well, well, I would say this. I was saying what I was saying was about her attraction, because you were saying
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking about how you were saying I don't know, you didn't know how much Jiha was attracted to her.
Yeah,
Obviously she was more
yeah,
attracted to Jiha. You didn't know how much she was attracted to her because she was attracted to men. And I
yeah,
was just
yeah.
saying, obviously I know that she does feel and that she does have feelings, and she actually is figuring out that she knows how to love. She's figuring out through Atticus, and I guess through the whoever, but through Atticus, that somebody can love her, because she's just like, my mom don't the supposedly my mom don't love me, so that must be out of the question. But if this person loves me, and then she figured out she had feelings for him as well, so she obviously does have emotions, obviously does have feeling. But what I'm saying is, she and we're all spirit, so the feeling is a thing a spirit do, but her spirit
You're
is
right.
a fox spirit. So when I'm so about this question about attraction, maybe she could be attracted to her best friend and attracted to Atticus, because she doesn't necessarily have sexual attraction the way humans do. She does have feeling
Mm.
and love the way humans do, but when it comes to sex, it's not really there. But so yeah, we obviously through this series or through this show, we find out that as she finds out, she knows what love is. She understands love, and but in the beginning, it's just kind of put out like she's just this monster who's supposed to have. Even she says she doesn't really feel the sex until she had sex with Atticus. She was like, I didn't really feel it
Mm.
before until I had sex with him. So she just, I guess,
Wow.
that's what she,
Good
yeah.
point. I didn't
And
realize that.
mhm.
Hmm. Wait, did I cut you
So
off?
no, no, so yeah, so I just wanted to explain that, because it is kind of complicated, like, but it's all perspective. Like I said, I was looking at it from just what they were saying. She even said herself, look, I'm not your daughter, I don't feel like your daughter. The memories that I have are from these men, and obviously the first man being your husband. So,
Mm.
the mom had hope, like, I can see my daughter in there, and she's trying to let her know, like, no, 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 I'm not in here. She was trying to get love from her, so it's just like, but you can see even the mother when she tries, she's just like, nope, you just got to get to 100 and then I'll love you. So in the scene that we're talking about after that, of course, Jiha is walking with her friend, and they're talking about communists. And like I said, I'm not sure how human she really is, because she's just talking about, like, the girl put it to the side, like, look, let's stop talking about this. And she's like, look, I don't really care who you are. That's when we get into this whole thing of we should be ourselves. The girl tells her, oh, we're all just human. And like I said, there's this LGBT undertone. They're talking about monsters, and we're also talking about communists, which to America was the monster. That was this monster. Oh, the communists, the communists. So that's the monster they scared us with to go into these different wars and all this stuff. So which is why Atticus was there doing his job. But in that scene, the friend that woman was talking to and I guess basically giving information to, they took into town and hung up and strung up, which, like I said, Kevin Lau wrote this, and I'm gonna just say, maybe I don't know if he's Chinese or if he's Korean, so hopefully he does have information on this. But I thought it was kind of weird that people were rooting it on. But I guess South Korea at this time is an anti-communist country, but just hanging somebody up in the street. So they see this, and of course the
And I'm
best
like, is
friend
that trying to relate to other things that happen, like in America? Like, what
mm,
is that about? Like, because we
yeah, just
know
people
we
just
know blacks were hung in America, So
yeah,
I'm
there's
like, is they're
definitely
trying to
yeah.
make
See,
us feel
I'm
like it's
glad you
all the
mentioned that.
same?
I'm glad you
Yeah.
mentioned that, because even if you go back to, I'm not sure which episode it is, maybe it was six, maybe it was a 5 or 4, but Montrose, when they're talking about communism and Russians, even says to Atticus, that's us, right? So that's us, right? So
Mm.
I can see the juxtaposition between what they're doing to communists in South Korea and what they may do to N words
And
and
who
here in
knows if
America.
they truly did hang people? I'm just saying, like, is that the intent of the storytelling to be like, hey, blacks and Koreans are a lot of the same because they hung people there. We don't know if they did or anything. I'm just saying,
We
like,
know
I
they
wonder
did.
if that was
We know
their.
they
Oh, okay.
did. You can look in
Okay.
history. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm not sure the details of how public the stuff was. I just don't know
Mm.
that. But there was obviously a big tension between South and North Korea, because the
Yeah.
North Koreans being the communists and the
Hmm.
South Koreans being the capitalists or the Democrats. So, so after that scene, do you want to go ahead and explain
No,
maybe
no, you're good.
after
You're
that?
good. You're good.
So after that one, I want to. Does she get? So after that, basically, I'll fast forward to where the nurses, they're obviously in school to be nurses, but because of the war, and obviously for a woman there in South Korea, it's either get a husband, which is kind of like what we think is going on in the beginning with the mom and the daughter. It's like, get men, okay, maybe she mean get a man, get a husband, because she was disgraced, she didn't have a husband, which is why she was in it. So that's the narrative through it. basically her having and not having a husband. The mom didn't have a husband. She had a baby out of wedlock. She tried to find one. He just so happened to be a pedophile, which I expose on my channel, the Anarkist, all the time, pedophiles. But he
Check
was an
out the
old.
Anarkist's check out the Anarchist's channel for a lot of information. If you're a truth seeker, make sure that you subscribe to his channel, and he dives into a lot of what's going on in the country and other places, but within the country, and just breaking down like the truths of what's happening. If you love education, if you love learning, and you love the truth, go visit the Anarchist's channel and make sure you get a truth seeker shirt from the Anarchist. Okay.
So as I said, you can see the theme of just women's place in not just
Society.
America, but yeah, in society, especially here in the story in South Korea, because it's basically the story starts with the mom having a out of wet, a child out of wedlock, and then finding a husband who ends up being a pedophile and abusing her daughter. And so after that, she goes to this shaman, which now we're introduced to the shamanistic side, the spiritual side, the magic side. So that's how they do that in here, which is interesting. Like I said, this is a lot of stuff I study anyway. A lot, there's some very good movies and very good stories coming out of Asian places. That's why Japan has some really good films. China has some really good films. So and because it's built, a lot of these movies are built off of their folklore, like the Kumiho, the fox spirit or the nine-tailed fox. So with this, she has to grow up and live with this spirit who she knows or feels is not her daughter. Maybe she believes there's a little bit of there in there, but and she just basically turns herself into a monster because she's just like, look, you need to collect these men and kill them and whatever. So
and
as we
then
fast forward,
go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, so what we find that GI being a nurse and having this nurse friend, and a lot of ladies are nurses to make money, and they're helping out in the war. So what they do is basically they work in the it's not like a camp, but it's basically these hospitals to heal up the soldiers. Not just the
right.
Korean soldiers, but the American soldiers. They're healing them and like taking care of them, anyone who was wounded by the war. What happens is they discover that there is a communist spy, and the communist spy was messing around or dating one of the nurses. So they take all the nurses out, and one by one starts to like attack them and like kill them, trying to figure out who is this spy, who is this person who's talking about communism, and who is associated with the guy that they strung up and hung, I guess, hung and like killed. And so they're about to kill GI, and GI's friend stands in front of her, moves her face in front of her, and says, "No, it's me. I'm the one." And all she did was talk about the stuff. It's not like, but she did go to like
Well, they
communist
said,
meetings, right?
according to them, she said information was being given to the communists. So she would, if that was true, then she would have literally have been a communist spy. Because this is war we talking about. So yeah, if you're talking about, the Americans are here doing this, that, and the other to the communists, then that does make you in their eyes a war criminal. So yeah, in this scene, this is where GI actually does encounter for the first time Atticus. He's just a soldier. He's stepping back. He almost shoots, I believe, one of them. So, and once her
he
best
did
friend
kill somebody. He killed somebody.
I'm sure he killed somebody, but I don't know, he killed somebody. I thought he almost shot GI or whatever.
Yeah, he did. He
Okay.
was.
So after that, after GI's best friend kind of just outs herself as as the communist spy, so everybody else doesn't get hurt. They take her, which we later find out after Atticus and GI have sex, and she kind of like can control her power and sees into his past and future. She finds out that he was a part of the brigade that was basically torturing her, I guess, for information.
Yeah,
Pulling
that
out
was
her
so
teeth. You can see that
sad.
part. Yeah.
He was pulling their
So
teeth out in the thing, which is crazy. But at the end of the day, you're a soldier, and soldiers follow rules in the war, or else you're a casualty of war. So, we see Atticus, who was truly a soldier. Like, he is not no type of remorse when someone tells you to get up in front and like, shoot somebody, or, and like be aggressive towards somebody. You do exactly what they say. And we didn't see the Atticus that we know, the one that has emotions and stuff. At least in that first scene that we're introduced to him, we see someone who's literally just like a puppet, who's a soldier of war, and he does whatever that his commander or whoever tells him to do. He did it. He just walked up and was like, all right, and just complete blank, just not there, and so basically after that, GI decides that, for once she's frustrated, she's lost her friend, or she knows that her friend was at least taken away. She doesn't realize later that she knows that that soldier at the Atticus has something to do with it, and so she plots to seduce him, and
Well, yeah, then he
basically
comes into
avenge.
he was injured. He was injured, obviously, some doing
Yeah.
something in war. So he was injured, ends up at her hospital, and when she sees him, she's angry because she know what he did. So
Hmm.
beforehand, she had told the woman who we think is her mother, but obviously she's the spirit. She told her mother, "I'm not doing the one more person that's going to get me to 100 souls because I don't want to be. I'm just not going to do it." And obviously that makes the mom mad. But when she sees Atticus and what she did to her, basically her only friend, and obviously the war made it so she couldn't go see her movie no more. She really has nothing to, I guess, live or be here for. So maybe she, in that moment, feels like, look, I guess I don't want to be around anymore. So she
Mm.
chooses, or decides that she's going to make Atticus the 100th soul that she's going to take, so she can actually banish her spirit and bring the daughter back, I guess. So in this, she kind of just does her little thing, like, I'm gonna make up your bed and kind of get you,
Yeah,
seduced or whatever.
she begins once she realizes that he's wounded and she has to help treat him because she is a nurse at the hospital.
Mhm.
She kind of puts on, like, I guess, her hat of, like, like, okay, I'm gonna pretend like I'm just being a regular nurse, but really go and see if I can, like, attend to him. She goes over and
Hmm.
starts to kind of just befriend him. She asks him what book he's reading. Keep in mind, we see a clip of him frustrated. He couldn't read the book. He was all frustrated, throwing stuff. He asked her to read the story to him because he couldn't read. I think his glasses broke, or he could read. His glasses just broke. And so we see her beginning to plot and plan to seduce him, and that's kind of how the story goes. Like, she's seducing him so that she can get him back to her house to have sex with him and murder him. And somewhere along the way, she starts to see Atticus for who he really is, loving, caring, and he starts to fall for her. And so, in falling for her, he surprises her. I think Uncle George has something to do with this, like, this this date that he set up for her. I don't know how. I
Well,
just remember.
beforehand, I don't want to jump too far ahead. I want to make sure we hit some of the stuff that I thought about. So yeah, she in that scene that you referred to where he asked her to read because his glasses broke and he was unable to read, which frustrated him because that was his escape.
Yeah.
Books, like he explained to her, was his escape. He actually explained in a conversation to her where they were kind of meeting each other, becoming friends, that when he was at home, books was his escape out of the world. And when that got tired of that, he actually, that's how he joined the army, because she was, and that was an interesting scene, because what that did is she was angry at him, and all these soldiers are pretty much angry at who they think are their enemies for whatever reason they're being told. But this is one of those rare moments where both sides kind of meet, and she understands, because she asks, why would you do that? The one of the obviously the Korean American soldier was like, I was drafted, I ain't trying to be here. You think I would be here if I wasn't drafted? And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
and he told her, like, well, he's drafted. And he kind of explained, like, because he's looking at him, well, why did you want to do this? And he just like, well, I was just trying to see the world. I was trying to see the world through books, and that didn't really suffice at the time, so I did this, and look, now I'm back at books. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was a good metaphor for how stuff is, because people think, oh, I got to go out and do this and do that, and I always tell people that it's all inside. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go and see the whole world and stuff that was already inside of you. But we'll get into some of that stuff. But anyway, so
Mm.
moving along, yeah, they create a bond based on their what they have similar. She's pretty much oppressed here based on war, and he's oppressed where he's from back home, as well as just like the Korean American soldier talked about. That's a slur word, but I'm a G word back home. And obviously, Atticus is the N word back home. So, and she's being oppressed in her own town. She can't even go see a movie, American movie. So, they bond because of that escapism thing. And he talks about, obviously has the book of Monte Cristo, whatever that book was that he
Monte
had.
Cristo.
Yeah, something like that. The Book of Monte Cristo, or whatever, Monte Cristo. And she, like you said in that scene, she was like, "Oh, this is how it ends." But she obviously only seen the movie, didn't read the book. So he's explaining to her, "No, that's not
Yeah, and
really
then he
happened."
tells. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
like, "Oh,
tells
that's
her
not
how.
really, they wanted to end the movie like that, but that's not how the book reads. So you got to read it." So that, I think that's the first time she kind of going around at him, like that's changing not only her perception of him, because before then she's just looking at him as a murderer and a terrorist basically, and she's starting to see that he's actually a nice guy. He's actually a nice guy. And, from there, but still trying to kill him, I think, because she goes and meets him at the army base. she kind of scared because she's like, oh, does he think I'm a comfort girl? And I think that's where they have the little first date set up.
And they had to be undercover because most girls that came in there were like, not prostitutes, but basically something like that, or like just comfort, just women that would please the men of war during this time. So it was a lot of Korean women that were just coming in there having sex with them, and so that's what they disguised her as, because otherwise she couldn't come there if she wasn't a comfort girl. So
Mm-hmm.
continue.
So yeah, and like you just said, there's a sign of Uncle George because he's like, oh, how'd you get this? He's like, my Uncle George. He travels the world. And I believe what they were looking at was, because remember, Judy Garland, the star of Wizard of Oz, was her favorite actress. So I think they were just looking at Judy Garland film stock or whatever. So, because she asked them when they was first to meet, like, do you guys know Judy Garland? Y'all from America? They're like, but they basically in a nutshell told them how racial dynamics are in America. For us to meet Judy Garland, he would have to be her driver, and I would have to be her butler. So yeah,
Like driving Miss Daisy or something.
So after that, obviously we see, and it's obviously, I like how the story does weave around to this, because I was really wondering what was going on with his thing in South Korea, who that woman was, and obviously we got her backstory, and she's not even really a woman, she's a spirit actually, disguised as a woman, as a foxtail spirit, the nine-tailed spirit does. But as we go along, Atticus is clearly falling in love with this woman, and we find out that she is his first. He was a virgin before this woman, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that he lost, because I'm like, men normally lose their virginity early, at least like by 18 or something, and for him to be, well, I don't know. I guess we don't know how old he was in the war, so maybe he was, because we really don't know. Do we even know how old Atticus and like Letty are in the series?
I'm not sure, but one thing I will say is we have to look at the time. This is 1950, so everybody ain't all having sex willy nilly like we is now. Look at you. Look at you.
No, I'm just saying, like, he could have technically been like 18 in this.
That's what I'm saying.
Series.
Usually, when you sign up for the war, you sign up right after high school. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't think that was too far
sign up. And some people, can't you sign up even, like, you could just leave high school beforehand and sign up if you want. You don't have to finish high school. Okay, yeah, you got to be 18.
No, I mean, you can be a dropout, but you got to be an adult. You got to be what's considered an adult here, which is 18. Once you're 18.
So maybe he was 18, and to find out he was a virgin, which we find out that Letty was a virgin. So they're both virgins losing their virginity to somewhat of monsters. Like, Atticus is not a monster. He just has this built up aggression because of his relationship with his father. But Letty lost her virginity to him. And in this episode, it's revealed that Atticus loses his virginity to a monster spirit or whatever. So, but it's like this idea that's being played around with, like, purity between him and Letty, and how they're shedding their purity or whatever, like, and it's opening them up to another world. I don't know. But back to this, I just kind of thought it was interesting that he was losing his virginity in the war. And I don't know, I'm like, was he being honest? Because all of these women, all these call girls, but then again, Letty and him were nerds. Like, they were like into books and the science club and all that other stuff. So, they waited later to, do that. And so I just thought that was very interesting to find that out. And that just made you, like, I guess, fall in love with his character even more, because he's a guy, and to know that that's something that he wasn't trying to do, even though he had been in the war, like, he wasn't trying to go and take advantage of these women that a lot of men like do in war. Like, it's just common for, like, when you go into another territory, like, a lot of soldiers end up raping or having sex with, sometimes it's willingly and sometimes it's unwillingly, the women of that country. And that's not something he was interested in. The only time he did pursue a woman was because he genuinely had a connection with her. And I thought that was nice. And that was good for us to see as an audience, just another layer of character development for Atticus. And so he does lose his virginity to Gia, and she begins to fall in love with him because he's like a hopeless romantic, doing all that stuff for her. And like you said, I think Uncle George helps him get the movie or something like that, right? It was a movie that Uncle George helped with, right?
Yeah, I think that was, he described that because she asked, "Did you do this?" He was like, "Oh, not by myself. My Uncle George helped me," and he told her that he was a guide, did guidebooks, and that he traveled the country, met people, and that's how he was able to get that Judy Garland stock footage. I think of her Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? He tells her that you're the first woman, or you're the first woman or something, to understand me and not be like afraid of me. He says something to her like, thank you for like seeing me for who I am. And remember, he was telling like Letty something before, like I think it was the episode before. He was like, don't be like afraid of me or something like that. And so I hope that this isn't going to be, and as much as I like this episode, I hope that him and Letty still work, because like, I don't know, like I want that to work. And I see that it's interesting that he felt like this woman, even though she was a fox spirit, uh, cursed woman, that he felt like she was the first woman to just see him for who he really is. And how will that play out for the rest of the series? Because we do see that they do have sex, and her foxtail spider, they look like long tarantula legs to me, like a spider tarantula. That's what they look like to me. It doesn't look like no foxtails to me. It looks like spider legs. They come out, they start to absorb him, and she stops them from like killing him or whatever. And so she sees some of his future and past and future, but she doesn't kill him. And I wonder if, because he's not dead and he runs out or whatever, if she will, if what happened between them, if that's all we'll see of her, or if something else will play, if she'll play a part later in the series. Because you could tell that they did really have a connection before he realized, like, what the hell are you, like, excuse my language. He was like, he saw those tarantula legs come out, he's like, what is this, what are you? He grabbed his clothes, he was like, let me get up out of here, like, whatever. She stopped herself though from killing him, but she did see, those glimpses of his life, and glimpses of, like, I don't know if it was Letty or what, but she saw glimpses of stuff in his future as well. And I wonder how that's going to play out, because she did stop herself. And I was surprised, the Anarchist, that she was about to get rid of the curse. Like, I don't think she should have killed him, because this was the first time that a guy really, showed her interest, love, and respect, and happened to be, this soldier from America, this black soldier from America. So I thought that was interesting. But I'm surprised that even though she was about to rid herself of that curse, after Atticus, all she had to do was go and get another soul and rid herself of that curse. And maybe she could have been, a better fit for Atticus, because she wouldn't have been cursed. I'm surprised that she decided to go to that. What do you call it again? The woman. Basically, to me, she's like a voodoo doctor, but
Yeah,
like
shaman.
a shaman. She went to the shaman and basically made another deal. I'm like, girl, that's like going to the casino after you just got all you already got your money back, and you gonna go to the casino and give all your money away again. That's how I looked at it, because I'm like, you're in the clear, like you're about to just be fixed of your cure if you just, or a curse if you just have sex with one more guy, and or just really it's murder one more guy to be honest. But um then to say, oh, I just have to know, I'll do anything, just let me know if he's going to die. What? No, no, because she couldn't see his death. She told him not to go back home because she said he's going to die. But she went to the shaman woman to confirm. I'm like, that's not for you to confirm. I went throwing my whole lot just for a question. Because what if he does die? Now you curse forever, because now you owe this shaman woman some more debt. Like, what else do you have to do for her now? Because they said the shaman woman said it'll be at great cost or something. So now she's in debt to her again. Why be in debt to her again? Why? Like, I just didn't think that was a smart move. Any thoughts on that last scene?
Well, my thing is, I don't know if I would look at it as being in debt to the shaman, because think about it like this: these shamans, like the which the Korean woman went to help with the husband that was raping her daughter, or the voodoo priestess that Letitia went to in previous episodes, where she wanted to find out what was going on in the house. These people aren't necessarily, you don't owe these people, you asking them for help, basically. So when she asked the woman for help, she said, okay, I can conjure up something that can help you, but it's all, that's basically how magic works. It's like, you trying to do something evil's going to come. You want this? Okay, here you go. So she
Mm,
doesn't necessarily owe the souls to the shaman. Some people look at
mm,
shamans as evil, but historically, shamans aren't always evil people. They're just people who know this magic stuff. And you ask me for something, here you go. So the spirit, the myth or the lore of the spirit is that if you're going to conjure up that spirit to get rid of it, I need 100 souls, which I think in the real
Mm.
mythology is 1,000 souls. So that's the spirit. And I want to bring that up to say, you keep looking at it like this is this woman's daughter. She made clear, I'm not the daughter. And that's why she's saying, I don't know if I want to do the 100 souls, because that means I may not be here no more. You thinking as this is a
Mm.
curse on me, and both her and her mother are saying, we clearly know that I'm not the original daughter that you had. I am this spirit. That's why she's learning things and acting brand new with things. You know what I'm saying? She's
Mm.
like, I'm not, so that's why she was so apprehensive about the 10th man. She's not coming at it from, I'm just going to break this curse. She's like, all right, if this happens, am I going to leave? Is this consciousness that I have, which is clearly the spirit, is that going to go and then someone else going to come back? Like you said, she don't
Mm.
even have the daughter's memory. So I think when she went to the shaman at the end, it wasn't that she was, because you made it seem like, oh, she, instead of just breaking the curse, she might think like, well, no, I think in that scene she was mostly worried about Atticus's fate. You know what I'm saying? Because she was in love with
Definitely, I
him.
agree. I agree that she was worried about his fate. I just feel like she should be thinking about her own self, like, but maybe she didn't care about, like you said, her existence so far. So, but I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like if she really cared about him, she could have just left with him. Well, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want her to leave with her because he didn't know what the heck she was, and But I don't know. I just felt like, wow, she's just in debt again. Like, But like you said, according to what you're saying, she may not even want to be the girl. She may be okay with just being the spirit person. So that I understand what you're saying, and that makes sense. So that's basically how the episode ends, unless I'm forgetting anything.
Yeah, it ends with her asking, her and her mother going to the shaman. I think her and her mother kind of had a bonding thing, or the lady
Yeah.
that, the fox spirit and the mom had a
Yeah,
bonding
after
little thing.
she was crying and she realized that Atticus left and everything.
Yeah, because before that, remember the mom said she not gonna, because she was trying to explain to mom, well, Atticus loved me, this guy loved me, and she's like, well, he ain't gonna love you once you tell him what you is. And she tried to, obviously she didn't tell him. It just came out, and he's like, before she could explain, she was trying to explain by reading the lore, the folklore of the Kumiho. So to kind of like butter him up to it, like, get the understanding of it, knowing that he liked science fiction and fairy tales, and then but wasn't really able to let him know in conversation before we just dipped. So of course he went back to America, which after she had the vision, she's like, don't go back to America, you might die. So yeah, it does end in the scene where, she does get to bond with the mother. They go back to the shaman and try to, she asks another question, and she so it does end like that.
Yeah. Now I feel like this is a good episode for anyone who's interested in like anime and like that type of stuff, because I feel like this can be related to that. So people who are into anime and comic books and stuff like that. Pretty much
Obviously people
anime
who
though.
are, yeah, into like Korean culture, South Korean culture,
Yeah.
Asian culture.
Yeah,
People who are
Asian
into
culture.
mythology like me. I'm really into mythology.
Yeah.
So when I first
Mhm.
heard the name Kumiho, I'm like, I need to know what that is and learn about the fox spirits, which I did know about, but in another way. I think the Native Americans have a similar spirit. But I know that's obviously a lot of East Asian cultures. So yeah, I was like, it was very interesting because the history in this particular story had to do with the history of the war, which kind of interests me a little bit, just regular old history, global
Yeah.
history wars. This is because people obviously don't talk about this war a lot, the Korean War that America had, but obviously that I learned a little bit about that and what's going on from both perspectives. I think this was really the most objective way you could tell that story, because obviously if you notice, there were scenes where before they got into the movies in the South Korea, they had these propaganda cartoons, which we actually had the same here. And our propaganda was when the military soldiers came and was putting out stuff. We're here, we're safe, we're not here to kill you. We just got these big tanks in your land, and we got these guns and all, but we're not here to kill you. We here, it's safe. So they're just like, just you being put in that place of the South Koreans, like, oh man, of this war and stuff going on, you being torn. It's like, obviously, if you just look at the war in history, Korea didn't ask Russia or America to get in and invade. These are just powers that say, hey, we're going to take this stuff over. So, it's interesting from there. And then obviously from a perspective of a Negro soldier going to this war to fight and give orders, which I talk about all the time, all that's mind control. You literally go to the army to get mind control. That's all that programming is, all that soldier, get it out of that. That's really just breaking you down. It's the same mind control as if people growing up in an abusive household and parents just yelling at you to the point where you just like, parents just yelling at you, beating you, traumatizing you. That trauma in all that is planned, pre-planned. So they break you down, build you up. You're a soldier. This is your gun. You know, so all that stuff. Tell you who you are. You kill these communist soldiers. So that's where the blankness comes from, and that's where the I'm just giving orders comes from. So them in this story, how he tries to explain that to Gi, and is in love with the fact that she can see him for who he is, someone who loves stories, who loves books, and her kind of looking past, kind of understanding that he's a mind controlled soldier, and that's not necessarily a monster. They were drafted. Yeah, the messenger 215 said they were drafted. Obviously, the Korean soldier was drafted, and I believe, as far as the story
Atticus
goes,
elected to. He wanted to go. He wanted to get away from his
yeah, I
father.
believe he signed up to the war. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was a very interesting story. Any thoughts on the episode?
Oh yeah. I want to just as we wrap up, I just want to ask a few questions. Now, how did you feel about like how they? It seems like okay, clearly they were like interested in each other in this episode. Like, how do you feel about that compared to like Atticus and Letty? And because he says that you're seeing me for who I truly am, but wait 1 second. Messenger 215 says my pop got frostbite in Korean
Oh,
War. Oh
interesting,
wow.
interesting. So we had
Wow.
somebody who's elder, their ancestor actually fought in the well, I don't know if
Wow.
they're alive or dead, but their pop, well, I'm guessing is the granddad, is actually got frostbite in the Korean War. That's interesting. Go
Wow.
ahead. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's awesome that they served, served in the war and stuff. Messenger 12215. Thanks
Hmm.
for sharing that with us. He
With Letty
says,
and Atticus, yeah.
huh? Yeah, yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
you're talking. Mhm.
He says that my question is he says that GI sees him for who he really is. But I wonder she doesn't know all of him. She only knows what, and they did build a relationship. I wonder if he sees if he truly thinks that she sees him more for who he is than Letty does. Now, of course, we see that this happened in the war. He's building a relationship with Letty outside of the war, like after that, and he's fallen in love with her in the world of what's existing in America. My question is, could Gi like they're in two different worlds, so but I wonder if he would feel the same way if she existed in America, because outside of just like the idea of them loving books together and storytelling, do you think they could work if they were together in America? Like, could she really be able to relate to him and his experience? I know that's a lot in one
Do I
question.
think that Jihad could be able to relate to Atticus and his experience? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, like if she was in America, like right now, if she was in America with him, experiencing the 1950s, like how Letty can relate to him. Like uh I personally think that him and Letty are like a better match. I think that GI and I love this episode. I love the acting for both of them, and I love the story like of how they've been able to bond over war. But I think when you take out like the whole experience of war, and if she were able to come to America, I don't know, like I don't know, maybe I'm just asking too much, but I wonder if she'll be able to relate like dating him in like America. I don't know,
Well, I
because
think.
he had the upper hand as the soldier. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't matter.
Well, I think in regards to that, because I think I know what you're trying to say. It's just like, obviously what's happening now is somewhat of a love triangle, and that's why I wanted to
Yeah,
know more about what was going on there, because we didn't know before this episode who the Korean lady was, or who he
yeah.
was, or who she. We did see a glimpse of her because she came to him as a soldier in one of the episodes, I think too, and fought her. So that was that dynamic, and which is maybe why he did, maybe why that happened. But now we find out that okay, he was in this war, and he just got in the war. Obviously, he didn't have any real relationships before then. He just had a traumatic childhood with his father beating him, and he after that he gets signed up to a war where he sees all this death. He think he about to see the world, but no, you about to see death, and you about to experience almost dying. So it's just like, I think at that point he just is confused about life and feels like a monster based on what he's ordered to do in war and the stuff that, because he even says like, before this my dad tried to make me this, and the war did what my dad couldn't do, just make him this
Hmm.
hard angry person, which kind of comes out in some of the episodes.
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm not. Mhm.
So I guess my question is, who do you think is a better match? And we don't know like how they would be in a relationship outside of the war, you know. But who do you think is a better match? What relationship do you like more so far, Letty and Atticus or Gia and Atticus?
Well, I think, well, as I was explaining, I think his whole relationship with Gi is the fact that basically that was her first. It was his first experience with a real woman. Atticus is obviously not like most men who just think sex is sex. So I'm just gonna have sex with as many women as possible. He obviously in his first time, which the dudes don't really announce it like that. I know I wouldn't announce it my first time. I'm like, let's just do this. Yeah, I'm experienced. Let's do it. So it just shows what type of man he is. Just tapped into his emotions. Like, I'm sharing this with you, this, that, and the other. So I think he does feel and have that connections to Gi, but like you said, they are two different people. She is someone who is not even a real human because he fell in love with the spirit, the fox spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So if she does kill another person, then that could be a totally another person. And just outside of that, she is a South Korean woman. I think if she went to America, her experiences, it'd just be like a shock. So those are just one of those things where it's just like we clash because I was a soldier, and I was in your country. We fell in love, but I think she kind of had a good perspective, leave and go before she knew he was about to go and die, or she thought he was going to go and die. No, leave and go, because he was falling in love, but she was like, I'm this person. I don't think she was going to tell him, but she did and whatever. So I think it's one of those things where it's just like almost like with Uncle George too. Uncle George is in love, or was in love, because that was the person he obviously had to love more when he in episode 2, when they had the little desire room and he didn't want to tell anybody what his desire was, which was Atticus's mom, even though he is in love with
Oh,
Hippolytus. So
that is so sad. I just realized that he didn't dream of Hippolytus. He dreamt of
Atticus's mom, I believe that
wow.
was. So yeah, but so that's just kind of just shows you how this series is showing you how complicated love really is. Like, do he love her more or love her more? I personally feel like he probably would be in a better relationship with Letty because they do have history together
Letty.
as science. I'm sorry, with Letty. Why I keep saying Letty? That's a singer, Letty, but Letitia. He has a better. I think it would be just based on them sharing experiences as Black people in America. They both seem to be activists in their own right, even though he went to the war and she fights mostly, stuff. I just think they're passed as science nerds in the science club. Go science club. And just
Yeah.
what they go to do together and how they just battling and going on this journey together. I think they would make for a better couple, even though he may still have some feelings to have some love for Gi, and obviously she has love for him. She doesn't want him to die. So love is a very complicated thing, obviously. But if you're just telling me who would be a better match, obviously someone who you grew up with, who shares your experiences, who you in love with, rather than someone who you are in love with and it was it took just a couple days, but it's just two spirits that connected for a time.
Yeah, and with Letty, he did take Letty's. It's weird because Gi is the woman that he lost his virginity to, and Letty is the woman that she lost her virginity. She lost her virginity to Atticus, so that was very special to Letty and stuff. And he has her child. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows if she's really pregnant or not? We think she might be pregnant, right?
Stay tuned for the
Yeah,
next episode. I
yeah,
think
we
they talk
think.
about it more in 7
Oh
than
yeah,
6.
yeah. And who knows? What if I don't know if she can have kids, but what if Gi is pregnant as well? I don't know.
I
Does she
doubt
have
it. I'm
kids?
pretty sure 99 men done came at her. So if she ain't pregnant by
Ah,
now,
ew.
I know the first dude did, or the first dude we seen. I'm like, that's nasty.
But they don't have that. Let's use the word legacy now. They don't have that legacy bloodline that Atticus has. You know, he
So
has
that
a
makes
blood.
make a child.
I
I'm
don't
just saying,
know.
like, if she
I
was
don't
going, I don't think she's pregnant because 99 times, and then well, he would have been the
know.
100th dude, but he didn't die, so I don't think she's pregnant. I think that's a spirit more so than a
Yeah,
human being. So it's
yeah.
more so trying to take the souls than create another life if it can.
Can a spirit this is a side note, you all. This is why me and the anarchist we can like talk and talk and talk, and I'm going to try to stay focused, you all. But can a spirit transfer another spirit into like the vessel of a child?
Can a spirit transfer another spirit into the vessel?
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't know what
know.
you're
Can
asking
a
me.
spirit like okay, so she's a spirit, right? Could they have
Right.
a child and then like how like in some horror films like they possess a child or a baby, or we have like that whole 666 thing, like a demonic Satan child or whatever is being born. Like maybe that could happen. No?
I'm sure that can happen. It's happened in movies, and if I was
Hmm.
just on it like that, I would be the person to tell you like, well, actually, that's happened in this movie in chapter 7 of, what I'm saying. So I'll be on that. But as far as this story goes, because I think where you're getting at is it possible for? Are you saying is it possible for Atticus and Jihad to maybe have a child, or is it possible for the child that maybe Atticus and Letitia have?
No, GI,
Oh,
GI, and him have a baby fox
I
spirit
don't think
baby.
that's in this. Like I said, when I first heard about the Kumiho spirit, I was very interested, so I did a lot of research, and this is why I think I have a little bit more understanding of who Jihad actually is, because that spirit, the whole folklore behind it is this is the spirit. Once she conjured the spirit, it went into the little girl. Maybe the little girl left and is somewhere else, but that is a spirit who now is just going to be this beautiful, attractive woman and grab these souls of these men, and it needs 100 to go back to where it comes from. So I don't think
Mm,
that particular spirit is too concerned. It's not human. It's literally a monster, but we're learning about what type of monster it is, and that is indicative of Lovecraft's work. When Lovecraft talks of monsters, we know in his racist mind, a lot of those monsters were actually metaphors for the different races that he didn't like, blacks, Koreans, Asians, and the such, and all these other places. So it's just like she's a different monster from this Asian, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese folklore that we're trying to figure out about as they exist in humanity and try to actually passes itself as a human. But like I said, we see glimpses even of, like I said, there are scenes. This actress did a really good job, and I'm not sure. I know this actress has starred in some stuff that Kevin Lau, the writer, has done in the past. But when I was looking at stuff up, I seen something from a singer, so she may be like a pop star singer actress over there in Korea. I
yeah,
don't
like the
know.
way she was performing, I'm like, she has like some musical theater background. Like I see it. I could just see it on her.
But she
Now,
she did an amazing job, because I felt
yeah,
like
she
in some
did.
scenes you could just I seen the disconnect between a lot of those people who acted more so human. Even her best friend who was like coming on to her, and she was just like, oh, okay, like this person likes me, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like
So
she wasn't. I don't think she was picking up. She wasn't like picking up the vibe as much as her friend was. Like she wasn't picking up just how much like her friend was trying to hint to her, like, hey, you know. Now like this episode, we know, like I'm pretty sure you know as well. I think we had a conversation about this. This whole episode about this love interest, we both know that this wasn't in the book. This was not at
right.
all in the book. Like he only experienced Korea, like going to the Korean War and stuff like that, but there was no mention of like him having love interest from Korea, anything about the Foxtail spirit. This whole thing was something the writers created
And
for the show.
they actually kind of insinuated that in the scene where Jihad just found out that she was, or just realized that she wanted to kill Atticus and start making up his bed, and then he gives her the book. When she explains the ending of the book, because he's like, could you read this for me? And she's like, I ain't about to read none of you. Here's the ending. And then, he's like, well, that was the movie, because that happens. Now you got to read the book. So that was kind of hinting like,
Mm,
because he said something like they thought it would make it better for the movie, but now you got to read the book. So I think
mm.
that was kind of referencing Mark Ruff's book, because it's like now this show is totally completely out of anything in the book, but so it's like you got to read the book. But I felt like that was what they were saying in that scene. But yeah, it's
Okay.
interesting how they obviously did take liberties to give Atticus, I guess, another love interest. Honestly, I didn't read the Mark Ruff book, so I don't know necessarily the intention. I think maybe the intention, if you ask me, is because I know for a fact that Kevin Lau, the writer and composer, he's a very good composer. Kevin Lau works at HBO, so maybe Misha Green just afforded him writing, and when he wrote, he's obviously an Asian, either Asian American or Asian guy, so he wrote in his folklore, which I'm not mad at, because I feel like this was the series that kind of saved me. I was very apprehensive on watching this one based on three
Oh,
through
this was the
six.
episode that
I'm sorry,
really,
three
yeah.
through five. Yeah, because I felt like it was actually good writing. It was good writing, and I was a little thrown off at the end because I'm like, oh, I gotta read subtitles, you know what I'm saying? But the story was very good. The story was extremely good, and just all the little hints and stuff that I like to look for as a filmmaker. The history behind it, the folklore behind it. You even see the fox at the end. How I know it's the Kumiho spirit, foxtail spirit. Because when he went to the shaman, she's looking off, and there's the red fox. So, and then also the history of the Korean War. It adds that in there, and then it perfectly weaves Atticus's story in with hers, and then for me to figure out what was going on with her. So as far it did save this series for me because the stories leading up to this was mad lackluster. So shout out to
Mm.
Kevin Lau and Misha Green for collaborating on this one.
Okay. What were you surprised about in this week's episode?
I was very surprised that the story started in Korea, which, in Korea because he was doing World War II. So I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if he was in Korea or not, but he was in Korea, and it just looked like I'm watching another story. At first, I wanted to get pissed because I'm like, am I here for Lovecraft Country? Am I here for, what I'm saying, Korean
I
craft
know,
country?
right?
Like,
I'm
what's
like,
going
what
on?
is this? I'm like,
Yeah, so but I'm just like, you know what? Let me just I don't know where they taking me. Let me just so I really focused in on the story, and thank God I did, because once I did that, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Because in the beginning, it's like, okay, here's this story about a woman and her mom, and I'm like, okay, I can see the whole thing about disrespect, because she's like, I think the neighbors will respect us once I become a nurse or become a whatever she's trying to be, a nurse. I think she was like, no, the neighbors will respect us when you bring home men or bring home a man, something like that. So obviously that's in there, but then there's this Lovecraftian element where it's got to have monsters, got to have spirits. So I like that they did that in there very perfectly with this
yeah,
ancient folklore.
I feel like they spent a lot of money on this episode. Like I feel like the graphics, like for the spider foxtails, were very high end. Like I feel like, I mean, I don't know, and I liked some of the like scenes with like the white snow and stuff, just different things. But really, like the digital, like them doing the effects for the spider foxtail like image. I feel like that was high end. Because we see in some episodes, I feel like some of the in the Holy Ghost episode, I think that's episode 3. I feel like some of the ghosts look like they were low budget. What do you call that? Basically digital effects or whatever. But and not all of them, but I just know a few of them just kind of seem a little bit like, and so it looks like they spend more money on this episode. But I don't know. I'm sure they equally distributed money, but I just noticed that those foxtails looked real. It looked very creepy, and it, made you
That
think
was
like,
your eye,
whoa.
cause my eye, I don't know. I kind of, I a little bit saw the CGI with it.
You saw the
After a while,
CGI? Mm.
yeah, I kind of, I mean, and I know it's getting better and better. And this, even Misha Green herself said they got the bag for this TV show. So I'm pretty sure they did get a lot of money. But as I'm looking at, and then, like I said, I didn't want to say anything because I think that's just a film eye and critique. Because it's just like, it
Mm.
is very hard to try to make that, what they were doing, just seem like absolutely real. So just me looking close, I'm like, it's kind of got a video game aspect to it. But,
Mm.
there were some
And
parts that did. Mhm.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like that with the episode 3 Holy Ghost. Like some of the ghosts seem like the CGI was just like a little off. Some of them were really good, but the other ones I'm like, I don't know. But kudos to them because I know it takes a lot of money and time to really put this together and create these different monsters and stuff. So, what is your prediction for the rest of the season now that you know this episode? Now that you know the backstory of GI and Atticus and the Korean War.
I mean, the only prediction I can give is maybe, I'll just say maybe because you never know. But maybe Jihad meets back up with Atticus. Maybe
Mm.
sometime, maybe at some point she comes back into the story for whatever reason to save him or whatever. But that's the only thing I can think I can predict.
Okay. For me, I don't know. I think maybe knowing this, I just hope she doesn't like, try to like, I mean, if she has a baby, I guess, hey, then her baby and Lady's baby can be siblings and live happily ever after. Not, no, but like, I don't know if she's gonna have a baby or anything. That's just what I'm wondering. And maybe she can, like you said, 'cause she's a spirit, a fox spirit. But I wonder if that's going to be the case. And I wonder if she's going to show up to haunt Atticus in any type of way because, throughout the season, we've seen her, like, we've heard her on the phone and she sounds all creepy and stuff. And then we see her story this episode and she's very relatable, very loving, very kind. We see a different type of person. So I wonder after, so listen, this right here, what we're seeing right here is her before Atticus left. Then we're hearing her on the phone afterwards. So I wonder if she's like gonna be like more angry with him and more aggressive and more like turning more into the spirit of what's the name of the spirit again? Kima?
Nine-tailed fox or the fox spirit. Oh,
Yeah.
the Kumiho.
Kumiho. I wonder if she's gonna turn more into that spirit now that he has left her. So
Mm.
that's my prediction. I don't really know. It's just a what if. I really don't know what's going to happen because every episode is something completely different. I am Almedia Exum, and this is the Anarkist. Make sure you visit his channel, subscribe. Make sure you like both of our channels and subscribe. Also, a shout out to one of our sponsors, My Personal Detail. If you need your car detailed and you're in the Chicago area, visit mpdetail.com, and also visit them on Instagram at mypersonaldetail.com to get your car detailed, and just bring back life to your car. If you need the inside of your car done or the outside of your car done, they restore like carpet, leather seats, anything you need done, paint corrections, if you have any type of tar that you need removed from your car, ceramic coatings, headlight restorations, the engine's done, contact My Personal Detail. Check out their work on Instagram and on YouTube and visit them at mpdetail.com. Make sure to go ahead and buy a t-shirt, a Truth Seeker t-shirt from the Anarchist. I have one. He's rocking one right now. If you're a truth seeker, make sure to follow his channel. Again, I am Almedia Lee Exum. If you're interested in motivation or veganism, subscribe to my channel. And if you're just interested in more reviews, subscribe to our channels. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the Anarchist is going to close us out.
All right, y'all. Peace, peace. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Don't forget to hit like. All right. Don't make me come after you. This is the Anarchist. Don't make me come after you. All right. And if those who are on my channel, please go check out Almedia's channel. Not only can you see these reviews that we do, but she has other content coming, more stuff coming for you guys. And you know what I got coming. So stay tuned because we're about to definitely go ahead and review episode 7 in the next live. So please come back for that if you're in the live. But don't forget to hit like in this video. And I want you guys to have a nice day. Peace.